For years, the world watched events unfold without understanding the invisible force working behind the scenes, the quiet energy that shifted timelines, influenced outcomes, and redirected chaos before it had the chance to erupt into catastrophe. What people never realized was that the chosen one had been walking among them, bearing burdens they could not comprehend, enduring trials they would never see, and carrying a spiritual weight heavy enough to crush the unprepared. While society judged by appearances, fate was shaping a leader in silence, forging resilience through hardship, cultivating strength through isolation, and building a spirit so rare that destiny itself began revolving around it. Every moment of loneliness became a lesson, every setback became a sharpening tool, every betrayal became a redirection toward deeper purpose. The world applauds victories, but the chosen one was trained by pain, sculpted by setbacks, and elevated through spiritual refinement carried out far away from public eyes. That hidden preparation is what made the global revelation so shocking, because nothing about your rise happened in the light, it was the darkness that taught you to shine. People wondered how someone so quiet, so overlooked, so underestimated could suddenly become the center of a global conversation. They questioned how an individual who once walked through life unnoticed could be recognized as a hero by one of the world's largest media networks. But they didn't know that while everyone else was busy with surface-level achievements, you were fighting silent wars, internal battles that strengthened your soul, external challenges that tested your faith, energetic storms that pushed you to evolve at a pace others could never match. They didn't know about the nights you stayed awake battling thoughts that tried to break you, or the days you had to step forward even when your heart felt too heavy to carry. The world rarely acknowledges the struggles of the unseen, yet those very struggles transformed you into the person now standing in the global spotlight. When the BBC headline declared you the world's new hero, it wasn't because of fame, influence, or public image. It was because your impact was undeniable. Your presence shifted people. Your energy uplifted them. Your existence inspired something dormant within humanity, awakening the collective belief that a single soul aligned with truth, purpose, and courage can genuinely change the world. They didn't see the spiritual training, but they felt the shift. They didn't witness the sacrifices, but they experienced the results. Every hardship you endured in private became a breakthrough the world would eventually benefit from. You weren't shaped for applause, you were shaped for purpose. And when your purpose matured, recognition became inevitable. Across cultures and continents, people began whispering about a transformative presence, a guiding force appearing at the right place and the right moment, someone who carried wisdom beyond their years and resilience beyond explanation. You weren't speaking loudly, yet your influence echoed. You weren't seeking attention, yet attention found you. That paradox is the signature of those chosen by destiny. Your journey isn't propelled by self-interest but by a deeper calling that compels you to rise even when you'd rather rest. And that calling led you through chapters most will never fully understand, chapters filled with spiritual warfare, emotional endurance, and divine refinement that stripped away everything unnecessary until only truth remained. The world recognizes you now, but it was the unseen path that made you who you are. The challenges that felt like punishments were actually preparations. The rejection that stung was actually redirection. The isolation that hurt was actually elevation disguised as silence. You were being trained for a role others wouldn't survive, for a mission others couldn't carry, and for a destiny others weren't equipped to fulfill. What appeared as suffering was a curriculum written by fate itself, a process designed not to break you but to reveal you. When the announcement finally came, when the cameras turned and the broadcasts echoed your name, people assumed this was the beginning, but the truth is that this moment was simply the unveiling of what had been forming for years in the shadows. You are recognized as a hero now not because you suddenly became extraordinary, but because the world finally caught up to what destiny already knew. Every lesson you learned in silence prepared you to stand in this moment with clarity, power, and purpose. Every trial strengthened the character the world now admires. Every unseen battle shaped the hero the world now celebrates. The recognition was merely the final confirmation of a journey that had always been divinely guided, even when no one else understood what you were becoming. The world sees the hero, but destiny sees the chosen one who walked through fire long before the spotlight arrived, carrying wisdom forged in the depths, strength built in the shadows, and purpose engraved into the soul by forces far greater than human eyes can perceive. As global media networks scrambled to understand the shift happening in the collective consciousness, it became clear that the emergence of the chosen one was more than a story, it was a moment that signaled a deeper awakening. Unfolding across the world. BBC's revelation didn't just highlight a person, it exposed a spiritual phenomenon, a rising energy that had already begun influencing millions before anyone knew its source. Journalists, analysts, and commentators tried to put their finger on what made this figure different, what sparked such intense curiosity and admiration, and why so many individuals from different cultures felt drawn to the same presence. The answer couldn't be confined to logic or fact-based reporting, because this rise wasn't built on traditional achievements. It was built on resonance, the kind of inner vibration that spreads silently yet powerfully across human hearts, shifting awareness and elevating the collective spirit without speaking a single word. People didn't need to see your face or hear your name to feel your impact. That was the first sign that something extraordinary was happening. For months before the announcement, emotional patterns across social networks, spiritual communities, and global conversations showed an unexplainable theme. People felt guided, strengthened, or awakened by a force they couldn't identify. It was as if a hidden catalyst was working behind the scenes, nudging humanity out of stagnation and into alignment with truth, authenticity, and inner power. When the BBC finally connected the dots and traced countless stories of personal transformation back to the influence of a single rising individual, the world suddenly realized it had been experiencing the ripple effects of your awakening long before your name reached headlines. This was not a typical hero's ascension, it was a conscious shift radiating through human energy fields, gradually preparing billions for a new era of awareness. Global media often focuses on surface-level events, but this time they were forced into unfamiliar territory. Your influence wasn't based on political power, celebrity status, or social dominance. It wasn't tied to financial success or public recognition. It was rooted in something deeper, an authentic spiritual alignment that naturally elevates everyone it touches. This made analysts uncomfortable, because they weren't dealing with a measurable phenomenon. They were dealing with transformation, something that couldn't be quantified but was undeniably real. People who had been stuck in cycles of fear suddenly found clarity. Individuals who felt lost gained direction. Those weighed down by hopelessness began to rise. And none of this could be explained by typical societal factors. That's when the term catalyst for awakening began circulating through major networks, accompanied by discussions about collective consciousness, energy shifts, and the rare individuals who possess the ability to elevate humanity simply by existing in their authentic state. This transformation didn't begin when media recognized you, it began the moment you stepped into your true self. As you healed, the world felt it. As you grew stronger, people around you felt their own strength ignite. As you broke old cycles, humanity unconsciously began breaking theirs. Your evolution created a frequency shift that extended beyond physical boundaries, reaching hearts, minds, and spirits across continents. This wasn't something you intended to do, it was something you naturally embodied. And that embodiment is what led major networks like BBC to acknowledge your existence as a turning point in human awareness. They saw patterns others couldn't, tracing global behavioral shifts back to the source, realizing that awakening isn't random, it often begins with one soul who carries the clarity the world desperately needs. When news anchors spoke about you, they used words rarely heard in mainstream broadcasts: energy, consciousness, awakening, transformation. They analyzed your journey not as a biography but as a blueprint for humanity's evolution. Psychologists weighed in, describing the phenomenon as the activation of collective resilience. Sociologists referred to it as a synchronized shift in human identity. Spiritual leaders recognized it as the arrival of someone carrying an ancient mission. People from every walk of life resonated with you without knowing why. Some felt a sudden rise in hope. Others experienced unexplained emotional clarity. Many felt a pull toward self-growth and inner truth, unaware that these changes were triggered by the evolutionary energy you carried into the world. Your influence reached those who never cared about spirituality, those who never believed in destiny, and those who had lost faith in humanity. BBC highlighted testimonials from individuals across the globe: a teacher in Japan who felt a renewed sense of purpose after years of disillusionment, a mother in Brazil who overcame generational trauma she never thought she could break, a young man in Kenya who suddenly felt guided toward building a better future, entrepreneurs, students, healers, skeptics, elders, people from every demographic who experienced shifts they couldn't explain. And though they didn't know you personally, they felt something awaken in them, something that reminded them of their own inner power and the potential humanity still holds. This was the impact that set you apart. Not fame. Not recognition. Not public praise. It was your energetic imprint, the way your presence triggered dormant strength in others, the way your growth inspired the world to evolve alongside you. The media didn't elevate you, they merely acknowledged a truth that had already begun reshaping global consciousness. You became a symbol not because of what you said, but because of what you awakened in people. The BBC report served as a mirror, reflecting back to humanity the subtle yet powerful transformation it was experiencing without realizing the source. And as the world connected those pieces, it became clear that this awakening wasn't random but sparked by your rise into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. As the world turned its attention toward you, the atmosphere shifted from curiosity to anticipation. People weren't just observing your rise, they were sensing that a new kind of leadership was emerging, one that didn't rely on authority, fear, or grand displays of influence. Instead, it came from a place of deep spiritual clarity, humility, and purpose. The chosen one stepping into global consciousness was not a political event or a media phenomenon, it was a divine transition, a moment where humanity witnessed the arrival of someone carrying ancient wisdom woven into a modern purpose. What moved people was the authenticity in your energy, the sense that your mission wasn't driven by ego but by a responsibility entrusted to you long before the world ever heard your name. You weren't stepping into power, you were stepping into alignment, and that alignment created a gravitational pull strong enough to reshape perspectives across nations. You didn't choose this role, it was a calling that had followed you your entire life. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every period of isolation had been part of a spiritual curriculum preparing you for a moment when the world would need a different kind of guide. This wasn't about standing on a stage or leading through words, this was about becoming a living example of transformation, a reminder that one person aligned with divine purpose can influence the trajectory of millions. Your leadership was not loud, but it was undeniable. People felt safe around your presence, inspired by your resilience, and awakened by your truth. They saw in you a reflection of what humanity could become when freed from fear, limitations, and the illusions that kept people small. BBC recognized this, not because of religious symbolism or mystical interpretations, but because the evidence of your impact was clear in the way societies began shifting their values when your story emerged. Instead of chaos, people felt hope. Instead of division, people felt connection. Instead of helplessness, people felt a renewed sense of direction. Your mission was not to lead from above, but to walk alongside humanity, embodying the kind of strength that invites others to discover their own. As you stepped into your purpose more fully, a collective awakening began unfolding, not through force but through resonance. Your presence became a beacon, a guiding light reminding individuals worldwide that greatness lies within them, waiting to be activated. You were never meant to be worshipped or idolized, you were meant to remind others of their own sacred potential. That was the true power of the chosen one, not that you were different from humanity, but that you became the mirror through which humanity could finally see its forgotten brilliance. As global consciousness expanded, people began redefining what leadership truly means. It wasn't about titles or institutions, it was about integrity, compassion, and the courage to live in alignment with truth no matter the cost. You demonstrated that leadership begins within, in the quiet moments where soul and purpose meet, in the choices made when no one is watching, and in the willingness to rise even when the world expects you to fall. This internal strength is what made your external influence unavoidable. People trusted you without needing explanations. They followed your energy without needing persuasion. They felt guided by your presence without needing instructions. You embodied a frequency that elevated those who encountered it, grounding them in clarity and inspiring them to seek their own transformation. That is the essence of a divine mission, the ability to awaken purpose by embodying it. Stepping into this role reshaped not only the world but also your understanding of yourself. You realized that everything you survived was preparing you for a moment when humanity needed someone who had walked through fire and learned to turn it into light. You understood that your scars were not signs of brokenness but symbols of the journey that qualified you to lead with empathy and wisdom. You recognized that your mission was not about being perfect, but about being aligned with something greater than individual identity. The world didn't need another leader seeking power, it needed someone who understood the responsibility of holding influence with humility and grace. That is what made you the chosen one, not destiny alone, but your willingness to answer the call when it finally echoed through your life. As this new era unfolds, your role becomes clearer. You are meant to be a guide, a catalyst, and a stabilizing force during times of global transformation. You are meant to illuminate pathways others cannot yet see and to anchor hope in places that have forgotten how to believe. You carry a mission that extends beyond fame or recognition, a mission that speaks to the soul of humanity and awakens something ancient within collective memory. You are here to remind people of their own strength, to uplift the weary, to inspire the discouraged, and to activate the dormant light within those who have lost their way. Your leadership is not about leading the world, it is about helping the world lead itself, empowered by the truth you embody. And as more people rise in their own authenticity, your mission begins to unfold exactly as it was always intended. The world is entering a chapter that requires heart-centered leaders, and you stand at the forefront of that shift with a purpose that grows clearer each day. This is your moment to step fully into who you were always meant to become, guided by destiny, supported by the unseen, and recognized by the world not for who you were, but for who you are now becoming. The Chosen One's mission has officially begun, and the world is ready to rise with you.